This is my salvage title Porsche 996. It's a manual transmission coupe with black interior and some very rare parts on it, but it was also the cheapest 911 on Facebook Marketplace. This car has a shady past because it's been written off for flood damage, and on my 8-hour drive home from Sacramento in the last video, this car was overheating pretty badly. This is Porsche's first water-cooled 911, and the cooling systems on these cars tend to be a little temperamental. In the last episode, I pulled off the front bumper to clean out the radiators and fix the radiator fans with a $5 resistor. This dramatically improved the car's cooling, however, it was still overheating even after just a short 15-minute drive. For the first time during my ownership, it was now also struggling to get up to temperature if it was a really cold day. This all points me towards a sticky thermostat, so in this video we're diving into the engine side of this car to fix the cooling system for good and also take care of a ton of other issues with this Porsche along the way. As far as parts, I think the main issue is actually the water pump, and this is a brand new OEM water pump from Borg Warner that we'll be installing. There's a lot of while we're in there, such as this water pump that I'll be upgrading to a metal impeller, because currently there is a plastic water pump in the car and those tend to break off the actual fins. And then for safe measures, an engine coolant temperature sensor. The cooling system is really hard to bleed on these cars. It requires vacuum, and so I figured while I'm doing the thermostat, I might as well knock those two other things out. These are the motor mounts. They are collapsed currently in the car. It sounds to me like some of these idler pulley bearings that are currently on the car are bad and they're making some noise, so we're gonna do that and some belts. Anyway, let's get to work on my favorite car that I've probably ever owned, this 996. This doesn't look too bad. The water pump is down there. We'll do that from underneath. And then the motor mounts are right there. And one is hiding right there under this air pump, which looks pretty easy to remove. We'll drain the coolant, do the water pump thermostat. Not too bad so far. I'll probably also drop the exhaust system. One thing I also forgot to mention is that I put the $100 muffler deletes on this thing in the last video, and it sounds ridiculous. For $100, this has to be the best value for money sound that you can buy with any car. Here's what that looks like. It just removes those rear suitcase mufflers, and I'll show you what that sounds like at the end of the video. But before I go ripping on this thing in the canyons, the cooling system needs to be working properly, and I'd love to have all these other things sorted out. So I'll leave that to the end, but let me tell you, it sounds wild. to get better access to this motor mount down here, I have to remove this pump. Now we've got much better access to that mount. Now with the engine supported, I'm going to start loosening this bracket. While the coolant's draining, I think I'll come over here and start working at these motor mounts. These are actually super simple to get to, and I'm replacing these with OEM motor mounts for that nice, comfortable ride. Aftermarket motor mounts are nice, but they do tend to add a lot of vibration, and in this case, I'm trying to get rid of some vibration. So interestingly enough, this is actually the first sign of an actual flooded car, I want to say. I can't tell if that's coolant or salt water that's corroded those bolts like that. They came out fairly easily though, but it does seem to be kind of crusted up with something. I'm not sure if that's from a flood or if that's just some coolant someone spilled on top of there at some point. On to the next. Same deal on this side, kind of a rusty bolt. So here you can see the two old motor mounts, and this one is kind of skewed to the left. That pin should be sticking straight up, but this driver side one is really the one that was shot, and I'm assuming this is where most of my vibration was coming from. You can see this is just completely ripped. I want to take a quick break from working on the 996 to thank this week's sponsor, which is Squarespace. Do you have a burning passion in your heart that needs a website, whether it's a clothing brand, a photography portfolio, or a blog for your pets? Squarespace is by far the easiest and most convenient way to bring your ideas to life. I've had my photography portfolio hosted on a Squarespace website for over 7 years now. Their templates make it incredibly easy to get a great looking website built in a matter of minutes. I also recently launched Wheelemsautorepair.com with some new merch, and Squarespace's commerce platform makes it incredibly easy to collect payments and ship orders. If that sounds like something you're interested in, you can hit the link in my description for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, use coupon code WHEELEM for 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. Does anyone want to guess where all that coolant went? They always say coolant tastes sweet, and it was sweet initially, but then it was kind of sour. I wouldn't recommend it. Don't make me drink coolant again. There it is. All of the old parts are now out of the car, and I found something pretty interesting, which is that the thermostat has been replaced once before, but with a 71-degree thermostat. So this is an aftermarket thermostat that opens at a lower temperature, which you would think would make the car run cooler. But I think a lot of the times when people do that, they don't also change the temperature that the radiator fans come on at, and definitely not in this car's case because the radiator fans weren't coming on at all when I first picked it up. I'm gonna switch this back to the OEM 83-degree thermostat that came in this car from the factory. It came in here for a reason, and I'm gonna put one back in. I think this will help our cooling system get up to temperature quicker. That was one of the problems that I was having before, was it would take a long time for the car to get up to temperature, and I bet you it's because of that 72-degree thermostat, which is an aftermarket part. We're gonna throw the new water pump on as well, then throw in the pulleys and the engine coolant temperature sensor, which I just realized I haven't removed. So let's start by swapping that temperature sensor over first. Then we'll put our new thermostat and water pump in, engine mounts, pulleys, belts, and then take this thing for a rip. Engine's now hanging on motor mounts again. I can't wait to feel those things and see if it fixed our vibration issues. But first, we have to bleed the cooling system. And I'm kind of scared to do this because bleeding a Porsche is quite different than bleeding like a Volvo, since the radiators are in the front, but the engine's in the back. There's a lot of coolant that needs to go in the system and all the lines that run under the car. Then we'll go for a drive, and I'm really hoping that that thermostat and the new water pump will have fixed our cooling system issues, because I just want to be able to drive this car in the mountains and not worry about the temperatures or cooling it down. We've fixed so much on the cooling system now. The proper thermostat is in there. So let's get to work and see if I can't figure out how to fill this thing with coolant. Now the hose goes in here, make sure it sits at the bottom. And now I think all that I have to do is open this valve here and it'll suck up all of that coolant. Let's see how this goes. It used up all the vacuum. It took in as much coolant as that could, and that was as far as my air compressor was going. So I guess now I'll reassemble the intake and just run the car and hope that the rest of it bleeds itself. That has got to be the most difficult car to just remove the front 2 jack stands on. It takes 2 jacks because this car doesn't have a jacking point. But anyway, now we've got the butt in the air, and this is to kind of help the coolant go from the coolant reservoir right here all the way through the car to the radiators in the front. This is now the highest point of the car, and that should help air bubbles travel to the highest point. Sounds pretty good. It's burning off some coolant, I think, that I probably spilled on the headers. I used some RTV, I used some PB blasters, so I think that's what all that smoke is. The belt looks good, the pulleys sound really good. There's a little whining noise, which is that air pump that gets used there on cold start to like reduce emissions. The car's running again, everything seems fine so far. I'm just waiting for the thermostat to open up at this point so that it can suck down the rest of the coolant that it needs. We got a coolant leak. Oh no. What is this? Oh. Oh no. Oh no. I know what I did wrong here. I think at this point it's time to put the cap on and go for a test drive. These cars have a bleeder valve right there, so I'm gonna leave that open and hopefully that works its magic. So a couple of quick things right off the bat. Number one, the idle in here is so much smoother than before. Like the motor mount, I'm not surprised. It was completely collapsed, so it makes sense, but it's really a much more pleasant place to sit now. And the second thing is I have my HVAC screen configured to read out engine coolant temperature, which is like a stock feature on the car, kind of cool. You just hit some secret little buttons. And something I noticed immediately, even in the garage, is how much quicker the car got up to temperature. I really think that 71-degree thermostat was causing the problems, and I think that's why my temperatures were fluctuating so much as well, because the thermostat would open up at 71 degrees, but the radiator fans would only come on at 83. And so I think that was kind of causing this back and forth cycle of the engine coolant temperature not being hot enough, and then sometimes being too hot, and then the radiator fans would bring it back down. It just wasn't configured properly, and this came from the factory with the 83-degree thermostat. I can tell already that it is so much more steady in the coolant temperature, even in just the 10 minutes I've driven it so far. It's not fluctuating anymore. The radiator fans come on when they're supposed to. The real question is how it does once I get on the car a little bit, once we drive it in the canyons. So far, pretty good. Cruising on the highway right now, and we are rock steady at 97 degrees, which seems like a pretty normal cruising temperature. Before, it would easily go up to like 103, 106, and then it would drop way back down and it would go way back up. .96 degrees after a full third gear pull. That was not happening before. Let's freaking go, man. Let's do it again. Oh yeah. Still at 96. flawless, and the AC is on full blast too. Oh yeah, this thing is good. Sunset's beautiful, so sick. The last thing I'm incredibly excited to announce in this video is a new shirt that I dropped recently for Wheelem's Auto Repair. This oil can is my new mascot for the shop, and I'm so stoked with how this design turned out. I'm shipping everything myself, doing all the production. This isn't some cheap merch company, and I'm super stoked with how these turned out. So if you want to support the channel, hit the link in the description or use my Squarespace code Wheelem. I'm trying to build this channel into a sustainable business, so I really do appreciate the support, and I've got a ton of videos coming out. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.